We don't always succeed in our efforts to create a diverse and welcoming society, but even within diverse communities, discrimination remains a problem. I'm joined today by three people who are working to break down barriers and bias through their work and advocacy. Stephon Collins, founder of the L.O.V.E Coalition, which is focused on social, civic, and economic equalities in the LGBTQ community, with a particular emphasis on people of color. Thanks for being here, Stephon.
Thank you, Anne, for having me here this morning.
Tayden, Haile, president of Jacksonville Black Pride and founder of the Transgender Veterans Association, joins us on the line. Good morning, Tayden.
Good morning.
And Regina Livingston, CEO of the Unspoken Treasurer Society, a resource for transgender and gender nonconforming people of color. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Anne.
And to our listeners, what bias or barriers have you encountered because of your race or gender identity? We want to hear from you. You can call us at 549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also message us on the First Coast Connect Facebook or Instagram pages and tag us on X at FCC On Air. So all three of you are working on similar issues in different spaces, but there's an upcoming event that seems to tie it all together. Stephon, tell us about the Through Our Lenses LGBTQ Film Festival. What is it and what do you hope it accomplishes?
Through Our Lenses Film Festival is going to be the L.O.V.E Coalition, our very first film festival, addressing some of the tough topics that I think we are all experiencing and we are all have been vigilant to in our current society as it regards to racism, homophobia, gender discrimination. And so Through Our Lenses will give us the opportunity through the lenses of art to be able to tackle some of those topics.
And tell us just briefly where and when it is.
Well, the date is February 23rd and February 24th, Players by the Sea on the beaches. That's our venue. And so we're very excited about this film festival. We are definitely looking for our creative content creators who have tackled these particular subject matters, who have covered these subject matters through documentary, through short stories. And we're asking our content creators to definitely submit their work addressing these particular issues that we need to discuss.
And is this a local content that you're looking for, national?
We are open to local as well as national. We are not only constricted to Florida. We are open to all individuals who have a passion to address these particular issues that we are addressing here through the film festival.
And this is seemingly a first for Jacksonville in terms of a film festival with this particular focus.
It is, because it makes it the first because of the simple fact that we're addressing the needs and the concerns as it applies to persons of color. Our Black and brown LGBTQ brothers and sisters who have encounter homophobia, racism, and gender discrimination. And we do have a story to tell, and we want the community to see it through our lenses.
Ms. Regina Livingston, you founded the Unspoken Treasure Society, which it now has 3 chapters throughout the Southeast with the goal of unifying the trans community. So I would think that people in the majority community might think that identity alone is a unifying factor. But you say that there are divisions and bias within that community itself.
Definitely. For one, the T was always silent in the LGBTQ. And so we've just now took a stand and decided to capitalize the T and speak out against the injustices, because we even have injustices amongst our community. We have cis gay males that treat us less than. That's not fair. And then we have other parts of the community that singles us out and kind of ostracizes us. And so we made it a point to speak up, to start speaking to each other, because there are so many marginalized individuals within our community. It separates us because they're not comfortable. Everyone's not comfortable, like myself, to take a stand and come out. So I'm giving a voice to those people that feel like they don't have one.
And for those in the community who maybe aren't all the way up to date on their terminology, you say a cis gay male. Explain what you're talking about when you say that.
When I say cis gay male, just the regular gay male. And a lot of times gay males don't understand what it is to be trans. They don't understand what they've never walked a day in our shoes, but they go by book knowledge and things that they think needs to represent us. And we as trans, we're the only people that can stand for us, and we're the only people that can talk as to what we've went through, because we're the only people that have lived through it.
I want to bring in Tayden Haile, who's the president of Jacksonville Black Pride, but you are also the creator of the Transgender Veterans Association. Tayden, tell us a little bit about your experience. You were in the U.S. Navy in 1998. You served during a interesting, difficult era, I think, in the military. Talk about that.
Yes, good morning. I'm not the founder of the Trans Veteran Association. I'm the community partnership and director of the.
Noted. Thank you.
I'm on the board. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, I served in the Navy from '98 through 2006. I had a wonderful time. I enjoyed serving. It was during Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. I would definitely do it again.
But that is what we call the don't ask, don't tell era. So how did that present challenges to you personally?
Personally, it didn't present any challenges for me. It was a difficult time because it was a shift. It was a shift that needed to happen. And during that time, the president decided to make a decision, to protect the people instead of it being a witch hunt, which is what it was before. And it was the choice and the decision that was made at that time period. And it protected some people, and some people were put out the military for it, but it was the best decision for that time.
And so after you returned from serving overseas, you joined various veterans organizations. And then this particular organization, which is an opportunity for transgender men to sort of have some brotherhood and that experience of having served in the military.
It's open to all. It's open to allies as well as women and men.
Okay.
But what Trans Veterans of America does is we just went to the White House 2 or 3 years ago, and we lobby. We lobby for the rights of veterans that are in the LGBT community, not just trans veterans.
And what issues do you lobby for? Like, what are some of the significant issues facing the LGBTQ community in the military?
So we have been fighting for the rights for trans veterans to receive medical care through the VA. Just getting hormone therapy is a huge plus. If you served in the military and you were trans and you transition and you have VA benefits, but there's certain things that weren't covered. But now, because of our fighting, they're able to receive hormone replacement therapy, and there are some surgeries that are even covered through the VA.
Gotcha. So we're talking about the issues that affect communities of color, particularly in the LGBTQ community. And we invite our callers to call in. We're at 549-2937, or you can send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or reach out on social media. Stephon, talk about the communities. Is this a large community that we're talking about, people who are experiencing bias within the communities we've discussed?
When we speak about biases and discrimination, I say that our experiences are very similar to our heterosexual brothers and sisters who are of color. There's no difference, as we know that we reside in the South. And so as our Black brothers and sisters, our heterosexual partners are experiencing discriminations in terms of housing and economic, even down to health, because I worked in public health for a number of years. And so they even discriminated in public health in terms of care. So yes, we are encountering those same different issues and challenges in terms of not only that, in terms of economic discrimination. That is a major issue, very similar to our heterosexual counterparts. And of course, homophobia is another issue that is very prevalent. I would say particular in people of color, that's a major issue because we don't have voice to speak out and feel comfortable in safe spaces speaking about our true sexuality. And going back again, tying this back to the film festival, hopefully this will be a space, because we do anticipating on having a panel where we can have discussion and have good discussion about how we can bring our communities together and not be divided among one another. There's strength in numbers. So if you ask me what we hope to gain from this, we hope to gain conversation where we can have an understanding and we can see from different lenses how we are stronger together and we build stronger communities as working together. As separately we are dividing it and we are still in the same space. So yes, we do have heterosexual allies who are our partners and supporters. So we invite them to be a part of this film festival as well, because we do have straight allies that support us.
What is it about the medium of film that is helpful to communicate and bring these issues together and expose them?
Well, through these particular documentaries and short films, they will give light of some of the issues that we are addressing from different perspectives. If you recall, several years ago, there was a rash number of murders against transgender persons here in Jacksonville. And that was covered by a local film person here, a documentary was. And so film is a way that, and film is a way that everyone can take part of it and feel safe and then learn from that, get a message from that. And so hopefully through this particular film festival, individuals will be able to come and we can have content creators to address different issues in a safe space and then hopefully bring conversation and understanding to a lot of these issues that we are encountering currently.
And there will be people that remember there were maybe 2 or 3 Black transgender people that were killed in Jacksonville within a very short period of time.
Exactly.
And there were issues there that, involved how law enforcement was handling or gendering people and kind of how that maybe informed whether the community knew who they were talking about. Talk a little bit about some of those barriers. And I know JSO did try to make an effort to respond.
And I very much they did. And I was in the heart of that particular issue when all of this was taking place of. And we were having town hall meetings at the college and JSS. I think they had started an alliance. They had supposed to implemented a inclusivity, I believe, in alliance to bridge that. And I don't know what has happened with that since then, but it did begin to spark conversation, not only in regards to the whole transgender issue, the whole race issue, because a lot of this here was in regards to if this had been taking place in a predominantly white community, the whole action of it would have been totally different, more responsive. So we go back to race. You were talking about intersectional. So we're talking about not only sexuality, but even race issues that we still grapple with here in Jacksonville. So we need to talk about those issues that we are still dealing with now: racism, economic inequality that affect us all, people of color, not only African Americans, but persons of different ethnicity. We are at the bottom when it comes to economic disparity. And so hopefully, I hope that our mayor is listening, because she said she was going to bridge some of these gaps, and that's what we expect.
Regina, the unique challenges that come with being a member of multiple minority groups is sometimes referred to as intersectionality. For instance, being a Black woman, you could face discrimination or bias for either of those things, or both of those issues, depending on the setting. Talk about how those work together and the challenges that you face.
The main challenges I face is the color of my skin. It's always I'm having to work extra hard. I always have to go be over and beyond to get my point across. As far as advocacy, I mean, it's been pretty easy because I'm just pure. I'm pure at heart, and when I speak from the heart. I speak from lived experience. So when I open up my mouth and begin talking, people listen, and I give them something to think about. But it's been a lot of barriers thrown my way, but me being determined to bring unity within community has kept me focused and kept me going.
And while you have a strong voice, though, you're speaking for people that maybe aren't in a position to speak up or are not maybe as equipped to speak publicly and do so without fear.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I make sure to be in those rooms, in those spaces, and I reach back and grab them and pull them along with me.
So I would ask each of you, but I'll start with you, Tayden. Is it getting more difficult to do this kind of advocacy work, particularly in Florida, given the growing intolerance of all things gay, be it drag shows or books about LGBTQ youth, or even saying the word gay in schools?
It's been extremely difficult. I own a private school where my students are able to be themselves and we're not confined to the rules of the school board. So I have a little bit more liberties, but in the public school setting, we also have children. So the things that they have to experience and they have to endure, it's pretty severe. They're stifling their voice. They're not allowed to be who they are.
And how do you prepare them for going to school? Your kids that are not in the private school.
We educate at home. I mean, everything starts at home with just allowing them to be in a safe space and having parents that understand and support them at home, and then allowing them to explore and be themselves in the community, and just supporting their friends when they go to school and being open-minded.
And Stephon, am I correct in thinking that you did some work with Jasmine?
I did. I did. I worked for Jasmine for a couple of years as a outreach coordinator, and I actually worked with parents who had youth who were gay, lesbian, or transgender. Supported the parents, and so that was a safe space for parents who could not possibly find safety in the other parts of the community, such as their faith community, their spiritual faith community, where many churches or synagogues may not have welcomed them. You know, that program that I was a part of did give them a space where they can receive support and information in regards to their child who may just have just come out gay or lesbian. Not only that, you were speaking about how difficult it has become, but it has become even more difficult for our children who are trying to find themselves to operate in the public school system because of the whole political calamity that we are living in now. It makes it more difficult for them to be themselves. And so, yes, we have to start to create more safe space for not only our young people, but for our parents, because we have parents who care for our children who are LGBT, and a lot of them don't have safe spaces to go to.
I seem to recall that there was some threats involving the Jasmine prom a couple years back, where maybe that event had to be canceled or curtailed because of
Exactly, the threats. Exactly, the threats coming from the community. Now, I was not a part of that prom per se, but I do remember very vividly the threats that that had taken place in regards to that. That there had to be modifications. So that is the climate that we're working in. Unfortunately, but we have to continue to create spaces where we can provide support for our family members and those who are caring for persons who are LGBTQ.
And Regina, what about the physical menace that has kind of emerged in the last few years, perhaps more prominently, with people protesting, attending, drag shows, or targeting the transgender community legislatively? How does that change the advocacy work that you're doing?
It actually doesn't, because I've never not lived in the same way that I'm living now. I've always been, we've always had to, as a black trans woman, we've honestly have always had to look over our shoulders. We've always had to feel like we needed to be prepared for whatever was to happen. So even though this stuff is going on right now with legislation, we've always lived our lives as if it was already going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I said earlier, we've always had it a little bit worse. And our voice within the last few years is when our voices really start being heard, because there are more of us starting to speak out, speak up, and stand up.
Do you have to do more work for other people in terms of people who are feeling targeted, feeling threatened? Do you feel like you're being called upon more to
Very
speak
much
out?
so.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so, because I'm the mother bear, and I'm a person that's going to protect. So I'm always being called upon. I'm always being called upon to speak. People always usher me to the front of the room. I'm always looking around, trying to make sure the vicinity of everywhere we are is safe, even when we have security. That's just my protective nature.
And what kind of assurances? I mean, do you tell people that they also have to be vigilant? Do you try to, provide some sense of reassurance in the community that things are, um, that people have a safe space to live?
Well, we try to take safety measures. Um, Within my space, I just make sure we have security, and we just invite them into those spaces that we know we can keep secured as much as possible.
And this film festival, Stephon, is it aiming to speak to the community that is being covered in the film festival? Or are you trying to reach the larger community, the majority community?
We're trying to reach the majority of the community, not just only persons who are LGBT, because as I stated earlier, is that I personally have supporters, very good supporters who are heterosexual, and they are down for the cause. And so we're asking for, our heterosexual allies and supporters to be a part of this film festival. Yes, it's for the greater good of the community. We're asking for our LGBT persons of color who are not of color, our heterosexual brothers and sisters who have something to say, have something to lean in terms of content creativity to be a part of this film festival. So we're looking for content creators who have delved into short stories and documentaries covering these many different issues. One other issue too, and we didn't speak about this, very prevalent in our community that we need to address is our faith-based community. We have a lot of our LGBT persons who are heavily into the faith community because that's a part of our culture. And so we're asking for them to be a part of it. We're asking for them to be more tolerant and to hear our concerns and issues, to come out to be a part of this here particular film festival. As I stated before, we will have a speaking panelist so we can have more debate. Not debate, I'm sorry, but more conversation. So that we can have more understanding around these particular issues.
Talk a little bit about that, Regina, because obviously the entire community in Northeast Florida is a fairly skews religious. The Black community, in particular, is almost. I mean, I don't want to speak universally, but like there is a really strong religious
Faith.
component to a lot of the way,
It is.
people are born and raised and live.
culture.
And how do you cross that threshold? Because traditionally faith communities of any color have been fairly resistant to the LGBTQ community and being tolerant of it.
You have to be pretty strategic. You have to reach out to people of power within the faith-based community that you can really penetrate in deep conversation and let them know actually what's really going on. Because one of the biggest things within the faith-based community is that there are a lot of people in the faith-based community that are LGBTQ.
Most definitely.
And when they preach this fire and brimstone, it makes them stifle who they are. And so they sneak and do their sexual acts. And if they are sick, they won't go get help because they're afraid. And in turn, they lose their life because they're afraid. And that goes on a lot within that community. So there is so much that needs to be discussed within the faith community. So it's slowly but surely those doors are starting to open and more people are starting to listen.
Exactly.
So
And I would like to interject too. Another strategic point to address that whole spirituality piece is to encourage members of these particular congregations to start bringing up and raising these conversations in their places of worship.
mhm.
They must find the strength to speak to their priests or their ministers and advocate for this particular community. Because I'm telling you, we have a lot of heterosexual fathers and mothers who sit in these congregations who have children who are LGBT. And a lot of them are suffering in silence because of this toxic religiosity that's being preached from the pulpit. And it's doing more harm than it is to good for any of the community.
You also worked in public health, and I want to kind of
did.
just circle back a little bit to what Regina was just saying in terms of people getting the health care that they need that might be connected to their sexual identity. Talk a little bit about how that particularly affects communities of color.
Well, it affects community of color because it first starts with valuing who you are as a human being. If you don't feel like you are valued as a human being, you do not value your health. A lot of our particular individual persons, because of going back to faith and spirituality, toxic faith and spirituality, do not value who they are in terms of their sexuality, and they engage in a lot of risky activity that put them at risk for STIs. Because sexually transmitted infections, of course. And we see a high population of HIV prevention infections among people of color because they are not seeking the health care and they're not taking the precaution. And I feel like it all stems because they do not value themselves. Because if a person values who they are, they take extreme measures to take care of themselves. But we are going back to our society valuing every aspect of the community, our LGBT persons, and those particular persons who are part of the faith-based community. And they take in that toxic doctrination. And if they are not valued in their faith and their spirituality, they're not going to take care of themselves physically. And so we must begin to change that.
Tayden, Haile, good, Regina.
I was just going to make another point on something that needs to come to the light. When they promote like PEP and in PEP and PrEP, when they promote,
and just to be clear, those are kind of prophylactic medicines you can take that
prevent HIV
or the spread.
They always have those promotional materials with gay men, and it needs to change because people of color think it's a gay disease. So therefore, when they're having unprotected sex, they think that they can't be touched. And then when they get it, they ignored it and it's still spreading because this can't be them. That can't be their life because this is a gay disease. And if the pharmaceutical company who promotes this would be real, being that there's 53% of the newly diagnosed cases are Black cis women,
exactly,
it would be a different story. That needs to be promoted.
Exactly.
That needs to be taught about so that everyone will know this is not a gay disease. Because now the heterosexual community are the more highly newly diagnosed with HIV.
And just to interject a little bit, when it comes, because I worked in public health for a number of years, when it comes down to sexual infection disease, any person, regardless what their sexuality is, if you're engaging in unprotected sex, you're putting yourself at risk, regardless of what your sexuality is.
Definitely.
And that's the bottom line of it. Regardless of whether or not you're heterosexual, bisexual, or whatever, any individual who engage in unprotected sex is putting themselves at risk.
Tayden, Haile, I just want to bring you back into the conversation. What is it that you think this upcoming film festival can bring? What do you hope the effect it has on the larger community in Jacksonville?
Oh, I love the fact that it's an art medium, and especially with the younger generation, I feel like people are going to be more apt to want to come out and explore it. It's an easy conversation. It's a way to enjoy it as well as be educated in a way that we're used to now in this social media world that we're living in. It's easier to digest it.
Yeah, we are visual storytellers, Regina, and I would guess that that's something that will help convey messages, perhaps greater understanding.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
And so when you are talking about this upcoming event, are you inviting people that you know in the community? Are you trying to do broader outreach?
Yes. I mean, anyone who are allies and I know that are going to be conducive to our safe space, they're definitely more than welcome because the education is definitely needed.
Exactly. Most definitely so.
And so you're accepting submissions. Talk about what that process looks like.
We are accepting submissions now, and we are definitely encourage all those content creators to please go to www.throughourlenses.com to submit those submissions in regards to your short films as well as your documentaries. Once again, that's www.throughourlenses.com. And we're not only asking for individuals creators, but we're asking for our broader communities in terms of our educators to please come out to be a part. We are asking our different entities such as our civics, as well as our civic communities, as well as our political officials who are representing our communities to please be there to hear our concerns and issues. This is a community issue. Although it's in regards to the LGBT persons of color, it's about us working together as a unity. If there's one thing that I can leave with our listeners is that together we can work together and build a stronger community as a unit force, more so divided.
Well, Stephon Collins, Tayden Haile, Regina Livingston, thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.